So I've got a question from Surah Bani Israel, verse 56. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. وربك أعلم بمن في السماوات والأرض ولقد فضلنا بعض النبيين على بعض وآتينا داود الزبور. Uzur, my question is whether Hadrat Daud alayhi salam was an independent prophet with Zaboor as his book or a follower of Torah of Moses.
Could you make your question clearer to me, please?
Yes, I want to know.
Have you understood? What was
yes.
this?
Was the Hadrat Daud
was given Zaboor?
Was given Zaboor, and wasn't he a
Independent prophet?
Independent, or was he
No.
Taba?
He was not an independent prophet because Zaboor is not a book of law. So that is what I have been trying to explain. But first let us translate the question and then inshallah I'll answer it. According to the Holy Quran, all prophets who came after Moses in that line of prophets, which began with Hazrat Ishaq and was handed down to the posterity through the progeny of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, largely. All those prophets who came were not law-bearing. Very few, if any, were those who were law-bearing. Hazrat Noah was before him. In the progeny of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam and Ibrahim himself, he was the first law-bearing prophet at the head of that line. Then came Hazrat Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. Then in that line, no law-bearing prophet came. But the last law-bearing prophet, Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, also appeared on the same tree of Hazrat Ibrahim's progeny, but from Hazrat Ismail, not from Hazrat Ishaq. This is the gist of what happened. So there are three law-bearing prophets in relation to Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. Hazrat Ibrahim himself, Hazrat Musa, and Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. All the rest are non-law-bearing. Now they were given books, of course, but those books did not relate to the subject of legislation. They related to other things, and because of those books, some qualities of superiority were established over other prophets, because these books created distinctive marks. They distinguished one prophet from the other, and in that respect, فَضَّلْنَا بَعْضَهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ can be understood. In what respect was Daud given a preference over others? Because of Zaboor. Because Zaboor has a very special book, is a very special book of fantastic expression of love for God. All the songs of Zaboor are sung in love and praise of Allah. So it's not a law-bearing book. And again, Zaboor stands out among other books in its dedication to the prophecies about Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the songs which Hazrat Daud sang of the beauty of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Zaboor are next to his songs of love of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah. Now Hazrat Allah Jalla Shanuhu, that is God Almighty. So this is not a book of legislation at all. Nothing to do. So how could he be a law-bearing prophet when there are no laws mentioned in Zaboor? So Allah mentioned Hazrat Daud alayhi salatu wasalam immediately after the declaration that we have given superiority, or shall we say faddala ba'dahum, excellence. We have granted excellence to some prophets over some others. Now what should be the illustration of an excellence? This is a partial excellence which Hazrat Daud has over all the Israelite prophets. None can produce a book like Zaboor, which sings so wonderful songs of Allah, hymns for Allah, and also who sing the praises of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they are books, of course, but not the law-bearing books, right? Please. Now this mention of Hazrat Daud alayhi salatu wasalam reminds me of a verse of Hazrat Muslim alayhi salatu wasalam, which reads, एक शजर हूँ जिसको दाऊदी सिफत के फल लगे. I am a tree who has borne fruits like the fruits born of David alayhi salatu wasalam, Hazrat Daud alayhi salam. In what manner could Hazrat Masih alayhi salatu wasalam be likened unto Hazrat Daud? If you read your Zaboor carefully, then you will, and also the poetic kalam, that is to say, the poetry of Hazrat Masih Maud in relation to the love of God and in relation to love of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah, then you will understand that it is not just a boast like mullahs think it is. It is so true, so amazingly true, that one is overwhelmed with the beauty of this statement, एक शजर हूँ जिसको दाऊदी सिफत के फल लगे. If you collect all the material of the past ages since the time of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where people have sung the praises of Allah and praises of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, collect them and compare it with the songs of Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi wasallam in Urdu, in Persian, in Arabic. They have a beauty of dazzling character. It stands out head and shoulders above all other praises. Of course, there are so many wonderful buzurgan, as we call them, asfiya, and saintly people in the history of Islam who could express themselves in poetic expression terms, who have paid homage to God, of course, and who have paid homage to Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is for any honest person to compare without prejudice the poems or the songs of Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salam with the songs of other people. He will know for certain that there is no comparison. And this is Zaboor, the quality of Zaboor, which I have just described. So when you read Masih Maud alayhi salam, you will find not an element of boast in that. He's so true. Whatever he says, he first knows what he's talking about, then measures it and judges it, and then expresses. This is true of his verses as well as of his prose, which I have many a time discussed during my Jummah sermons, and if you listen, if anybody listens to that, then of course he will know that as Masih Maud expresses every word which is measured, which is well balanced, and is always true. Another resemblance of Hazrat Masih Maud to Hazrat Daud is his humility. And that is another quality of Zaboor, which I forgot to tell you earlier. Zaboor stands out in three features. Overwhelming songs of him, love for God, and also prophecies of Hazrat Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the sense that a Prince of Beauty is about to appear, and this and that. And the third quality is his own humility. It's amazing how he lays himself low on the ground, on the dust, when addressing God, and in comparison to God, when he presents himself, this is what I am, this is what you are. At one place he says, I'm worse than a worm. I am a thing of shame for mankind. I'm this and that. You know, when you read that, you shudder at who is expressing this. A prophet of God, and a great distinguished prophet of God. One of those about whom the verse says, فَضَّلْنَا بَعْضَهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ وَآتَيْنَا دَاوُدَ زَبُورًا. He said, worse than a worm, a thing of shame for mankind, and a filthy thing which people would not like to touch you, that sort of thing. Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu also had exactly the same quality of humility and humbleness, which is seldom expressed by people of their status. He says, "Kir mein khaki hu mere pyare, na adam zaad hu bashar ki jaye nafrat aur insanon ki aar. O my Lord, I am a worm of earth, not fit to be called a man, human. I am a shame for humans who feel themselves degraded when they speak of me." Now, this is a wonderful expression of humility, which also is expressive of people's attitude towards him. The great ulama and all the so-called divines of the time of Masih did actually look down upon him as a mere worm, as something of which one should be ashamed. This is what they have written. So even in that humility you find truth. This is what I wanted to tell you about Hazrat Masih. It's always true. Now the mullahs take up the same verses to further blemish him and to assassinate his character. You see, he admits himself, I am this. How could he be a prophet of God? And they forget that Daud was a prophet like him before, who said exactly the same thing in Zaboor, and yet you believe him to be a prophet of God. But Daud also was true in his humility. He knew that is how the enemies of truth were looking at Daud. That is how, that is the status in the eyes of the humans, the ungodly humans. So when one shudders at the humility, one should remember this, that it is not just an exaggeration. In the prophets do not exaggerate even in their humility. They're always right. So here you should take the statement in inverted commas. Hum bashar ki jaye nafrat, oh God, this is how humans are treating me. This is exactly how Hazrat Daud was treated. Now you know. So this verse has led us to all this. Thank you very much for selecting this verse.